want to bring in attorney Rachel Fiset now. She's been with us since the beginning of this trial. The defense, Rachel, wanted the jury to go out to Moselle to get a lay of the land spatially. Who benefits more, though, from the jury seeing this firsthand, the defense or the prosecution?
It's really hard to say, and I think who benefits more is really dependent on what bias and what facts the independent jurors are taking in. So I think that the jurors probably have a pretty good sense of where they are headed with this case, and each juror will likely confirm his or her belief by being at Moselle. And the only thing that could happen is that they might make some determination that one of the sides arguments or facts are possibly impossible while they're there. But other than that, I think they will just get a good visual of what they already believe happened.
We heard some of the expert witnesses who were called back yesterday in final testimony from the state, and we had one forensic expert say it is implausible. It is not possible that there was two shooters based on what he witnessed at the crime scene. How much do you think that the jury and the state well, first of all, how much do you think the defense will lean into that argument?
I think the defense will say that that's not plausible, that, what we have here are competing experts, and the defense is going to lean into their experts and the prosecution's going to lean into their experts, and the jury's going to have to make a determination as to which expert they believe more, which side's experts they believe more. So the defense's argument has been a little bit clearer through time, but the prosecution will need to tighten up and say what their experts believe. And yesterday's exams by the prosecution were fairly persuasive. But again, each side is leaning into their experts, and it is an absolute jury determination as to which experts they find more credible.
In the last hour, we were talking about what I'll characterize as the big lie, right? For the jury, for all of us who have been watching this case, that Alec Murdaugh took the stand and said, I lied about where I was the night my wife and son were murdered to investigators that night. In the months after the murders happened, he said he was now there. How does the jury factor that into their deliberation when he lied about something so major that it wasn't until he took the stand that he came forth with the truth?
We are going to hear a lot about this lie in closing arguments. That lie is something that the prosecution will absolutely lean into over and over and over again. And what they will say is he was caught. There were witnesses, and he could no longer lie about it. And that's the only reason he came clean on the stand. Not to mention that once he is at the kennels, it places him right at the scene, almost at the exact time of the murders. Whereas the defense will try to gain credibility for Murdaugh for finally coming clean. They will talk about his opioid addiction and all of his paranoia and why he would have told that lie, but try to get some sort of brownie points for him for finally coming clean to this jury. So it will be interesting, but this is such a big deal. It will absolutely be addressed over and over again in the closing arguments.
Rachel, there has been so much talk, even as we have reporters in this area outside the courthouse talking to people, these crime tourists who show up, that everybody's sort of on different sides. You hear some people say, I think he did it, but I think it's going to be a hung jury. We're hearing that hung jury idea a lot. How do you think the judge will handle the possibility that the jury just can't come to a unanimous decision?
Well, if they can't come to a unanimous decision, it is Murdaugh's acquittal. So I think that's the law. The law accounts for that, and that's something that the defense is trying to get done. Look, they just need to convince one person that he didn't do it. They just need to raise enough reasonable doubt in one juror that he did not commit these murders. And I think that it's going to be difficult that the prosecution will get a conviction here based on the various holes the defense has continued to poke into their case.
And the reason I asked that question, I spoke with a legal analyst yesterday who said the judge will likely instruct the jury, we need you to come to some conclusion, maybe stay longer until you can talk this through. What do we know about the longer it takes for a jury to decide what that means about where they're leaning?
The longer it takes for the jury to decide, the better it is for the defendant. And the judge will continue to instruct the jury to go back and go back. But at some point, they have to just call it. So he will lean into the jury. This has been such a big case. It is hard to reconvene another jury. It would be hard to try this case again. It's been so publicized. It's gotten so much attention, and both sides have really put so much effort into this trial that a mistrial or a hung trial would be a bit of a travesty of justice. However, the judge cannot make the jury come to a unanimous decision.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.